Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Caron Crochet 3D Star Blanket, which is a free pattern you'll find on Yarnspirations.com. Please go to the link in the description, or simply go to your favorite search engine and type in Caron Crochet 3D Star Blanket, and it should come right up. This pattern calls for Caron 1 pound in the colors claret and off-white. I don't happen to have those colors in Caron 1 pound, so today I'm going to be demonstrating using Red Heart Super Saver, which is another fantastic worsted weight yarn. We're also using a USK 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. This one is by Susan Bates. And while it's not required, I do find that stitch markers are pretty handy when making this pattern. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so first let's take a look at the written pattern. Here you can see the free pattern that you can download from Yarnspirations.com. You can see it calls for Caron 1 pound and our USK 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. You can also see the finished size of the blanket, which is about 50.5 inches by 63.5 inches, excluding the tassels. You can see here they have added tassels, but those are of course optional if you're not a tassel person. One thing I want to point out here is that we make 136 of the triangle motifs to make this blanket. So while this blanket looks very complicated and like it's going to be, really tricky, it's really just a bunch of these small triangles. Each of these triangles has 2 red sides and 1 white side, just like the one you can see right here. This is the size of each finished motif, which means while it's a great big blanket, this actually is a wonderful travel project because you can make one small motif at a time, set it aside, and then move on to the next one. Now, one thing I want to point out really quick, you'll see here on mine, we do have to seam all of these motifs together. So I left the first 2 ends unwoven in here on the back. This is a great way, just at a glance, to tell that this is the wrong side, so that when you go to seam them together, you can seam all of your right sides together facing the same direction. Now, back to the written pattern here, a couple of notes that we want to make sure to point out. The rounds are joined and then turned. So we're going to work back and forth on both sides of our fabric here as we make our motifs. Also, we do not want to cut the yarn when changing colors. We're going to pick it up and use it again, and I will show you how to do that as I make this motif. Now we have written instructions. As I say, we're making 136 of these triangles. Each one of them is only 6 rounds long. So again, a perfect travel project. Then they recommend using a flat slip stitch join to join them all together. You can do it this way, or you can seam them together in your preferred method. Again, it's your blanket. Then it looks like there's a simple single crochet border around the outside, and again, those additional tassels. Again, optional if you want to add them. And I wanted to point out there is also charted instructions for the motif. So if you're someone who prefers charts to written instructions, those are available as well. And then finally, the last page of the pattern has the seaming instructions. So here you can see it's kind of drawn out flat. Here it is, the 3D version, but we want to seam in one direction, then the other, and then the other. Again, if you'd prefer to seam it together a different way, that's fine. Just want to make sure that all your red pieces come together to form a star. And we'll be going over that a little bit at the end of this video. So first things first, let's go ahead and make a motif together. So you want to start each one of your motifs with your red or whatever you want your main color to be. So again, color A is going to be the main color, 2/3 of the color of your blanket. So that's the one we want to start with. I've already put a slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch in that very first chain that I made to form a ring. If you'd prefer to start with a magic circle, that would probably be fine. But we're going to follow the written instructions. Now we've got a little ring there made out of our chain of 3. So now when we make our first round, we'll work right into the center of that ring rather than into any individual stitches. So for our first round, which is on our right side, we're going to start with a chain of 3, which is going to count as our first double crochet. So when I make that 3rd chain, I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch marker right in the top of it to help me mark the top of that first double crochet. If you'd prefer to use a double crochet substitute, you absolutely can do that for this pattern. So we've got our chain 3, And then I'm going to work 4 more double crochets into the ring, and then chain 2 and work 5 double crochets into the ring. So let's do all that together. 4 double crochets into the ring, we yarn over. If you need to, you can just use your fingers to really pull that apart so you can find the center there of your circle and go right on in there. You don't need to worry about working over the tail, but if you do, it's no harm done. So there's 1. I go right back into that ring again. So there's a second. There's 2, 3, and 4. Tail wanted to get caught up in there, so I'm just going to give it a little tug and make sure that falls away. There we go. So now we have our chain 3 followed by 4 double crochets. So essentially, if you've used a double crochet substitute here, we want 5 double crochets. Then we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and work 5 double crochets again right into that same ring. I'm going to let that tail end just hang out there and straighten these out. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if we go back to our instructions, we're going to chain 1 and then drop color A and chain again with color B. So we want to make sure we get our second end ready. Okay, so once we've got our second end ready here, we're going to go ahead and chain once with our first color, and then we take our second color, and we're going to chain again with that one. Now, we can, or we want to, just leave that tail end right there hanging out, like so. Then we are prepared to crochet into this ring again. So with our color B here, we are going to work 5 double crochets right into the ring. You can see I'm holding onto those tails just to give myself a little bit of stability. It makes it a lot easier to get these first couple of stitches in here. So there's 2 with our white. We need 3 more. And if you need to, you can just go ahead and give it a yank. Make yourself some room there. You can see our ring is nice and open wide now. So there's 4 and 5, like so. There we go. So now we've got 5 double crochets, chain 2, 5 double crochets, chain 2, 5 double crochets. After we make these, then we go back to our instructions and we see we join with a half double crochet to the top of the beginning chain 3. This half double crochet is going to count as a chain 2 space. So you can kind of think of it as, because it puts us back here, it creates this connection, but puts us where we need to be. So it's a little trick that you'll find sometimes in different kinds of motifs. So we yarn over, go right into the top of that third chain. We can go ahead and get that stitch marker out of the way now. We're not going to need it anymore, for this round anyway. And we go ahead and put our half double crochet right there. So you can see that kind of creates our chain 2 space between these 2 sections. So now we can turn and we're ready for round 2. So now we're going to be working on round 2, and this is going to be on the wrong side. So as I say, I like to go ahead and leave my ends hanging out right here. I'm not going to weave those in until I've put my whole blanket together. So for round 2, we're going to start again with a chain of 3, which counts as our first double crochet. If you do use a double crochet substitute, you want to work that double crochet substitute into this chain 2 space, quote unquote, underneath the half double crochet. I'm going to just follow the instructions here and work our chain 3, and I am going to mark the top of that chain 3 again. I just find it is a lot easier when it's time to join with that half double crochet at the end. There we go. To do it if I've already got the stitch marker in there sort of holding that open for me. So we've got our chain 3 made, and now we're going to work a series of post stitches across here. So first thing is we work a back post double crochet around the next double crochet. So that's going to be this one white one right here. We're in white. That's a pretty good clue. So we come from behind, around the post of the stitch, and out the other side. Yarn over, pull our loop around the post of the stitch, and then finish it off like a standard double crochet. When we're making post stitches, we're working around the post of the stitch rather than under the top 2 loops like we normally would. So that was a back post double crochet. Don't worry, I'm going to be making lots more of them. So that was that one. Next, we work a front post double crochet around the next stitch. So we yarn over, we find that next stitch. Now we're going to come from the front. Go in on one side, pop our hook up on the other side. Bring our yarn over, so we can yarn over and pull up our loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2 to finish that double crochet. So you can see how this is creating quite a bit of texture right here. So now we repeat those 2 stitches again. Yarn over, find the next double crochet right there. We want to come from behind for a back post double crochet. Go around the post, pop the hook out on the other side, bring our yarn right over so we can yarn over and pull up our loop. And when you pull that loop up and through, you want to pull it just around the post, not through either of those loops, because then we want to finish it off just like a standard double crochet. Then another front post double crochet. Yarn over, come from the front, around the post, yarn over, pull our loop up and through, and finish our double crochet. That gives us one more white double crochet right there. You can see, I think that's actually, yeah, that is a double crochet right there. So we're going to back post double crochet around this last one, like so, just like we did before. We come from around behind, go right on around it, and then that brings us to this chain 2 space right here. So we are going to work a double crochet right into that chain 2 space. Then we are going to chain 1, and now I want you to drop your yarn. It's going to feel like to the front, but remember this is the wrong side. We're going to drop our yarn here and pick up our red yarn, which is right here, ready and waiting for us. And we're going to yarn over and pull through to create a chain. So you can see I've left a little bit of height right here, and that's because I'm going to get these extra bits of white yarn out of the way here. I'm going to yarn over right away and go right back in that chain 2 space for another double crochet. Now, you might say, and rightfully so, what is up with this little line right there? Is it not going to, be an eyesore? Well, no, because as we continue making our rows, we're going to come back and work post stitches around those. So when we do that, we can work around that little tail there as well and enclose it all up in that next stitch. So it'll completely disappear. Do not worry about that. So now you can see we've got our chain 2 corner there, our double crochet in that chain 2 space, and now we're ready to tackle these guys right here. And it's going to be the same series of stitches we did before. Once you've worked a few rounds of these motifs, it's very easy to get this memorized. We're going to start with our back post double crochet. So we yarn over, come from behind, around the post, come out on the other side, pull up our loop. There we go. Sometimes they want to catch. You just got to take your time with it, redo it if you need to, and make our back post double crochet. Then we just alternate front post double crochet around the next one, back post double crochet around the next. And if this is your first time encountering post stitches, I do have a separate tutorial for that on this channel. Front post again. And remember, we had 5 of those double crochets, so we should go back, front, back, back. There we go. So we've got the one in the chain 2 space, back post, front post, back post, front post, back post. That brings us to our next chain 2 space. Pull up a little bit more yarn here. Whenever we come to that chain 2 space, you can see we don't have a color change here. We're just going to go right in there for a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Easy peasy. Brings us to our last section here of 5 double crochets. So same thing again. We're going to work those post stitches alternating, beginning with the back post. So we come from behind for that first one, back post double crochet, then front post double crochet around the next one, back post double crochet around the third one, front post double crochet around the fourth one, and then we'll back post double crochet around the last one. You can see right there is our chain 3, so it really does just kind of disappear into the pattern if you don't feel like doing a double crochet substitute. Now, this brings us back to a chain 2 space, and it's a chain 2 space with a color change, but this is not where we're going to change colors. We're only going to do color changes back at this end where our white end is hanging out. So to finish up this one, we do need to put a double crochet in that chain 2 space. And then normally, of course, we would need our chain 2 to close it up, but same thing, we're gonna finish with our half double crochet. So I can use my stitch marker here to grab the top of that chain 3 that we had marked from before and put my half double crochet right in there. And now we have finished round 2. So for the third round, we're going to turn our work and we're back on the right side. And you might notice you're already getting a little bit of cupping. That's totally normal. We want this to cup up. That is what creates the 3D effect for this blanket. So now we're right back in this corner and we've turned. So we're going to be heading across this section of red stitches again. So once again, we want to start with our chain 3 for our first double crochet. Sometimes I make that third chain just a little bit bigger so that it's easier to get my hook back in there for that join. There we go. And then that's going to count as that first stitch in that chain 2 space. So now we need to address these stitches across here. And we're going to follow the same pattern as before. We start with a back post double crochet. And then we alternate front post double crochet around the next one. And back post around the next one. And if you'll notice, because we're turning our work and adding stitches in those chain 2 spaces, these are going to line up. We're doing a front post from this side. It looks like a front post around a front post and a back post around a back post. So those lines of post stitches should be lining up really beautifully. We're just alternating just as we did before. Back, front, back again. Then front post double crochet. And then we've got just one more stitch left here before our chain 2, so we know that's going to be a back post double crochet. And then we're back here at a chain 2 space, and it's all red, so we stick with our red, or color A. Double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. Easy peasy. This brings us to our next section of red here. So we're going to do the same thing. We start with our back post double crochet, and then we alternate. Front post double crochet around the next one. Back post double crochet around the next. Front post double crochet around the next. Back post double crochet. So you can see each round is just going to get a little bit bigger, but we really can memorize this pattern. Now here you can see, I want to show you, this is where I pulled up that little bit of red there to get our yarn to pull up to height. No big deal. When I make this back post double crochet, I'm going to go around that post and that bit I pulled up, and it will all just disappear right into the pattern. So now we're back at our chain 2 spot, but this is one with a color change. So we know we're going to start. Don't forget, put that first double crochet in your chain 2 corner. Then chain 1. Then go ahead and drop this. Now we're on the right side of our work, so I'm going to drop it to the back and find the long end that's still attached to the skein here of our white. And same thing. I'm just going to bring my hook down. I'm going to create some tension on these yarns so they're easier to handle. Bring my hook down here closer to the base of the stitch. Yarn over and pull through, and leave about a half double crochet's worth of height there. And I'm going to right away yarn over, get into that chain 2 space, and put my double crochet right there to sort of lock that corner together. There we go. So same thing. You can see there's a little bit of a line there, but when I come back for the next round and work a post stitch around it, it's going to hold that all together and it will just disappear beautifully. So now we need to work across our white stitches. Same thing again, always start with our back post double crochet, and then front post around the next. We're going to follow that same pattern. This, I will tell you, this blanket, when I first looked at it, I was immediately struck by its beauty. I loved the 3D effect, but, at a first glance, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a complicated pattern. But once I sat down to make one of these motifs, I realized just how delightfully memorizable it is. How great, like I say, it is for a travel project this winter or even over the summer, because these are small pieces. You could definitely make all these pieces over the course of a year and then assemble the blanket, once it's actually chilly enough to have it on your lap. So here you can see we've worked our way across. I've got my back post double crochet around that very last one. Once again, we've come to a chain 2 space. We don't want to forget we want a double crochet in that in that chain 2 space. That's how our sections keep growing here. So we've double crocheted there too. Now this is our marked stitch. We've gone all the way around, so we're not going to chain 2. We're going to join with our half double crochet right in the top of that marked stitch. So we can get that out of the way. There we go. And this is what it should look like at the end of round 3. So for round 4, we're going to turn and we're back on the wrong side. Again, I've got those tail ends just hanging out there, so they're out of our way. And we're going to begin again here with our color B with a chain 3. I'll mark the third of those chains so that it's easy to join to later. There we go. Then, again, that counts as that first double crochet here in our chain 2 space, so we follow the same pattern. Now, our rows keep getting a little bit, or sections I should say, keep getting a little bit wider because we've got those stitches in the end. So every time we do one of these, it's going to be 2 stitches longer, but we follow the exact same pattern. We start again, back post double crochet right around that next one. Front post double crochet around the next. And by the time you get here, you should be able to see they're lining up. We're coming from a back post around this one. You can tell that's going to create the same effect there. Our front posts are all going to be lining up from this side. Like so. So you see a nice straight line there with the back post double crochets in between. If you start getting sort of a waffling effect, something has gone wrong. You may have missed a stitch in the corner. I think that's going to be the easiest thing for people to miss, is putting the double crochet, chain 2 double crochet in each corner. And odds are good that that would be what would be throwing you off if you have trouble getting to one of these sections and finding out you don't have the right number of stitches. Because you should always end your post stitching with a back post double crochet, begin and end. So there we are. We've worked across the white. We've come to our chain 2 corner, and this is the one with our color change. So we need to make sure, again, like I say, I think the easiest thing is going to be to forget to put that first double crochet in there before we chain 1. This is the back side. We've got our tail ends ending here, so I'm going to bring that tail end forward so it's ready where I want it. And then I can yarn over with our red. And if you pull it up too high, don't worry about it. Just pull back on that. Make it a little shorter. You can tighten everything up, adjust it as you like it, and then get that double crochet. Don't forget that second double crochet in that corner. We let our white hang out there, and now we're ready for the next section. Begin again with your back post double crochet, followed by front post double crochet, just like we've been doing. At this point, you can count your stitches if you want to, but you've got an increase of 6 stitches each round. And as long as your pattern is working and you're not forgetting those corner stitches, it's going to be a really great, easy project. We just keep working our post stitches. And if you're not familiar with post stitches, it's going to be a great project to practice them on. You will absolutely be a master by the time you are finished. So I just did a back post double crochet there, and I've got a chain 2 space. So I know I've come to the end of that section. It is expanding, but it is definitely starting to cup up, and that's what we want to see. So we've got our red or color A corner here, so I can just go right into there with our double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and then right back at it for our next section. Begin again with a back post double crochet, followed by a front post double crochet. Back and forth, all the way across. So I'll see you here as I get to the end of this section. All right, so I've got one more stitch here to make in my red. And then we are back at our marked stitch, so I know I've gone all the way around again, and it is time once again to join with our half double crochet, like so. So this is what it should look like here at the end of round 4, and rounds 5 and 6 are just repeats of the last 2 rounds. You've seen, I hope, at this point, the established stitch pattern. We turn, we make our chain 3, and we work across these, the same pattern. Every time we get to that corner, we double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, post stitches across, do our color change, again, all the way around. Finish up with a half double crochet for that last join. So after you've added 2 more rounds, you can see it's just a little bit bigger. We've got this cupping action happening here, We've got some great cupping action happening here. Round 6 will be a wrong side round, if you will. So you'll finish off on the wrong side. That's okay. Again, do recommend you go ahead and weave in those last 2 ends, but I like to leave those first 2 ends just hanging out here so that they mark the wrong side. So when I join them together, they'll all be facing the right way. So now let's talk about how we actually arrange our triangles to create this beautiful blanket. So here I've made some paper cutouts to represent the motifs that we make when we're making this design. So you can see 2 of each section is red and 1 section is white, just like our crochet pieces, but I think it's a little easier to see here when it's flat. So we're going to make 136 of these total, and then it's time to start joining them together. So I would recommend that you, when it's time to start joining them together, before you start sewing, you grab a great big whack of stitch markers, safety pins, whatever you've got available, and then you can start pinning them together at the corners to make sure that they're matched up before you start your seaming. So when you've got your individual triangles made, you want to start by just matching up the red ones, keeping the white ones on the outside. And each of these little stars is going to be made out of 6 triangles. You can see here how I'm just going in with the red, like so. So then I would add a stitch marker, absolutely, probably a couple here in the center, but definitely on each of these corners to hold these exactly, maybe even, additionally right here, just to hold these all in place. Then I would go ahead and probably make up my second one, like so. And of course, if you do it differently, you do it however works best for you, but this is the way I would do it. I would create my next hexagon here with my 6 triangles, get those attached, and then start attaching those like this. So you're going to have your white ones come together like that. So if we go to the final page of the pattern, you can see they've drawn this out here as well for the entire blanket. But here you can see a representation of how those come together. So then you'd have your next one here, and so on. And if we look at the final blanket, you can see they've got sort of half ones up here for some of their finished edges, like so. So you kind of can create your finished edge that way, right there. So lots of different options for how you want to end up actually seaming these together. As I say, you can do the flat seam. To do that flat seam, after you've got, again, get them all pinned together just the way you want to, what you're simply going to do is go under, the way they've got it written, you would go under the back loop only of 1 stitch, the back loop only of the stitch next to it, yarn over and pull a loop through. Now, my yarn's still attached, but let's go ahead and cut it off so I can do that a little bit more accurately, in fact. Let's go ahead and cut this here. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and finish this one off. So when you do join these together, you want to use a matching yarn. So if you're doing 2 red sections, you'll want to use red yarn. If you're using 2 white sections, you'll want to use the white yarn. And again, if you don't want to do this flat slip stitch seaming, you can attach them some other way, whatever makes you happy. So I'm going to take my 2 pieces and I'm going to say, yes, I know they're different sizes, but we're going to pretend that this one's the same size and we're ready to seam these 2. So I want to keep my yarn underneath. Get these out of the way, underneath the pieces as we work. So first things first, I'm going to go in the back loop only. So you can see there's the top 2 loops. The back loop is the one on the wrong side, furthest away from me, the crocheter. I'm going to go under just that back loop. I'm going to find the corresponding stitch here on the other side, or the other motif, go under just that back loop. Then I'm going to take my yarn, find the end here. I'm going to leave a really generous end here, so I don't want it to accidentally pull out. I can weave that in later and cut off the excess. Just going to pull that right through both. Now, it's helpful to have a table or something, a nice steady surface here to lay this on while you get this going. I straighten my yarn out here so I can find the end still attached to the skein. There we are. Now I'm going to, we started on this one, so same thing. I find the next stitch. I'm going to pick up just that back loop on my hook. And then the same thing on this one. Now you can see it's pulling up really loose. Again, this end, both ends are loose. We can tighten those up as we get to the end. Back loop here. Find the end attached to the skein and yarn over and pull that through. Let's do one more and then we'll tighten up the whole thing. We'll go to the third stitch here. Find that back loop. Go to the next stitch. Find that back loop. Get our yarns arranged here. Yarn over and pull through all of those loops. So now let me pull that loop up a little bit. So you can see it was really loose here at the beginning. That is one of those ends. Here's the tail end of our seam. We can just give that a tug and pull that right back together. But that's going to create basically a flat seam in between. You can see is really discreet right there in between the two, and you would just keep going. So you can do it that way if you'd prefer to whip stitch them together in individual motifs, then sew your motifs together. I think that would be a really valid way of doing this, especially with so many pieces. But again, however you want to attach them, it's your blanket. You should absolutely do it the way that makes the most sense to you and makes it the most fun. Because I think however you attach them, you're going to get this really beautiful 3D effect with the cupping of these motifs. And this is just such a stunning blanket. I'm sure it will be quite the heirloom for years to come. And that's how to crochet the Caron Crochet 3D Star Blanket. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you'll check out the free pattern on Yarnspirations.com. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more great crochet.